Hey guys, welcome to another East Coast Rams podcast. I am your host, Ashton, with my awesome co host, Zach, and we have a special guest here, Blaine Grisak. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher that always, of Turf Show Times. How you doing, Blaine?
Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on. Really looking forward to discussing this draft. I kind of think Leslie hit this one out of the park. Really excited about it. 14 players, and I think there's some guys that can make an impact here.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with you there. Zach, how are you doing? And when you see this list of guys, are you getting excited for next year, or are you dreading it?
No, for sure. I'm actually really pumped up for it. Though I feel like my those I follow on Twitter did not seem very super excited with a lot of the picks that they made. So we'll kind of break some of those down. But no, I thought it was a great 3 days of draft, and Rams are only really 2 days, but still a lot of fun, and can't wait to break this all down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's start off with saying first off, I think whether we like a player or we dislike a player, like the place where they were picked or disliked it, we want every one of these people to be successful. I would die to have each one of these players the Rams drafted be all pro. I think they are people. We have to remind ourselves of that and have grace for these guys. They just went through probably one of the best days of their life. So congratulations to every person selected, and I hope they go through training camp and make it onto the team because this team definitely needs bodies. They got bodies in this draft. So the Rams ended up drafting 11 people today. It was a little confusing because they did a lot of trades on day 3 if you weren't paying attention. Blaine, just looking at the composition of this draft, what surprises you, or what doesn't surprise you with how the Rams approach this draft?
I was kind of surprised they waited on wide receiver for as long as they did. I kind of thought, having McVay in the draft room, he'd be in Leslie's ear before every pick, saying, "Hey, let's get a wide receiver. Let's get a wide receiver." Just get him a playmaker or whatnot to put alongside Cooper Kupp. But so it was surprising to see them wait until really late in the draft and until they took Puka Nacua. That surprised me. But and then I think a lot of people maybe expected them to go running back early, and for them to wait until when they did take Zach Evans, I thought that was a really smart move. We've seen them take running back early in the past, and even though we've seen guys like Isaiah Pacheco with the Chiefs last year get drafted really late and then find success, so that they get Zach Evans, who I think has a lot of upside later on, and so I think they didn't get cute. They stuck to their board, and I think it worked out for them.
Yeah, Zach, I definitely think we have been accustomed in the last 3 years to the Rams, let's say, taking luxury picks, if you can call them that. What's your reaction to this draft class? And do you think it was smart for really the Ram front office keeping it simple, stupid? Like they drafted a lineman first. They went ahead and went full defense for the first few rounds, which they really needed after losing Leonard Floyd, losing just so many free agents and trading away Ramsey. What's your reaction to this draft class? Just the composition of it.
No, I think it's super smart. I mean, if you compare this to what we even mocked up, this past, last week, it was pretty close to what,
Yeah.
Obviously not the same order and the players that were, but the positions that we chose were not far off. I mean, I think we talked pre-show that in our mock draft, we chose 2 wide receivers and they only chose 1.
Yeah. And we chose an extra defensive tackle and they only chose 1.
So, I mean, I feel like, like I said, outside of who they actually picked, I mean, I think we were pretty spot on of what we thought their need was going to be. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about what they picked up. I think I was kind of surprised, kind of like Blaine said, that they waited so long for a wide receiver. I thought that was probably going to be one of the top 3 picks that they would choose. Just again, knowing that mindset of they love their offense, they love their offensive weapons, and so whatever they can give Stafford, is usually a no-brainer. So very interesting how they kind of played and kind of how they, they traded back and forth quite a few times in this draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Jordan Rodriguez has done a good job of like reporting that they want to go full offense next season. And with this draft, you like there's some mindset on Twitter that they were going to focus all offense because they want to readdress and like make the offense the focus of next year, but they really didn't do that. Blaine, why do you think that is? That they chose to focus, especially on the early rounds, on defense, and their highest offensive pick is a guard. It's not a wide receiver. It's not a tight end. Apparently, they were trying to trade in the first round to get a tight end. But I felt like after McVay didn't get his way on that, he just kind of just let Snead go with needs.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the draft, I think you look at the roster and there were needs at pretty much every single position. It's just kind of depending on how you wanted to prioritize those needs. And I think you just look at kind of the moves this offseason. They cut Leonard Floyd, they trade Jalen Ramsey, they cut Bobby Wagner. There's these huge holes on defense, and especially at the edge rusher position. They coming in the draft, Michael Hoyt was the only real edge rusher on the roster, and he's not really even a natural edge rusher. So there were huge holes there. So I do like them going Steve Avila at 36. Get a nice beefy offensive lineman there, but then they come back around in the third round and they get Byron Young, who he is older. That was kind of a trend with their picks in this class. It was an older class. But I really like what Byron Young brings to the table. He had a good Senior Bowl, really productive player at Tennessee. His story is really cool. Like I tweeted at the time, like if there's a Kurt Warner story in this draft, it's Byron Young's story. He was just a really great story to follow. And yeah, so I think they maybe prioritize defense because quite honestly, like going into the draft, like their defense was pretty bare bones.
Yeah, Stanton Bennett also has a great story. There's a lot of gritty stories in this draft class, and I think they probably had to go older and more mature just because a lot of our last 3 draft classes aren't getting re-signed. They're not with the team. We've had a lot of people fall off, and you really need this team so desperately needs depth in multiple positions, especially mature depth. So I think that could be one direction or one reason why they chose to go this way. Not to mention you get more bang for your buck, so to say, because those people tend to fall. They tend to not go earlier. If someone of that same talent of Byron Young was, let's say, 3 years younger, he probably would have went in the late first, early second. But he was able to fall, and the Rams were able to really get him at a good pick. So let's go kind of pick by pick, guys, and go over why the Rams picked these guys and whether or not we like the pick, if we think it was early and stuff like that. Let's start with Steve Avila. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. A guard out of TCU. I think some fans were really shocked when the Rams went this direction. Zach went guard. I think we were all expecting a wide receiver, tight end. Tight ends were starting to go. I almost think they were wanting Michael Mayer, and maybe history would be different if we didn't get like jumped over from Michael Mayer. And I think he went the pick before. So I think they were definitely looking at tight end. Most of the top level tight ends were gone by now, and they got Steve Avila, and his RAS is pretty impressive. He allowed 0 sacks last year for that national championship team. How did you like that pick?
No, I thought it was a smart pick. Obviously last year their offensive line was kind of their story outside of major injuries with Stafford and Kupp and things like that. I mean, going 11 straight weeks without rotating 11 straight weeks of different offensive linemen. And really this guy, he's more than what Coleman Shelton is, because Coleman Shelton could shift from his position over to center and things like that. Steve Avila, he can play multiple positions. He's done it in his college career. He's shifted from position to position, including center. So he's a very versatile weapon who, if they're not liking somebody, maybe Noteboom, and they think that he needs to go out, well, this could be a fill for that spot. Or, if another player gets injured, he can shift, and then they can shift, players back and forth. So I think it's a really smart move when you get someone as versatile as he is.
Oh, I think he's starting. I think he'll be starting by the end of camp. First team. He is so impressive. Blaine, what's your reaction to them picking Steve? Did you like him as a prospect? And do you think the way he was utilized in TCU, will he be starting for this Rams team?
Yeah, honestly, I was really surprised they took him. I loved him as a prospect, but I thought he'd be a better fit in more of a gap scheme. And the Rams are obviously they run a lot of zone. But the thing is, like, even though he is 332 pounds, which is a lot bigger than what the Rams have usually drafted on the offensive line, especially on the interior, like, he can move. Like, he can get out in space, he can block in space, and he's really comfortable doing it. And like Zach said, I think the big thing with him is that he can play multiple positions. He can play left guard, he can play center, he can play right guard. I think I'd probably put him at left guard to start or center. I think that's where I would put him. But I am interested to see the direction they go with the offensive line, because they have so many guys that can play different spots. You can play Shelton at center, Jackson at right guard, Avila at left guard. There's so many different options that they can go with. But yeah, I absolutely loved Avila as a prospect. I was not expecting him at 36, and the fact that they did take him, I think shows that maybe they went in a new direction here on the offensive line, or a different profile on the offensive line because of their new offensive line coach. That might be part of it, but I think it just it was a smart pick. It was they didn't go a Tutu Atwell type or like a Tank Dell type wide receiver at that spot as a luxury pick. They stuck to a huge need, and I think surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, I think a big thing is adding to quality offensive line depth, because when Whitworth left and Noteboom took over, we didn't have that extra fifth or sixth guy that could come in a pinch. And yes, we had even more injuries on the O-line, but I'm talking about, like, if we only had that first line injury, one or two starters getting hurt for a few weeks, we need that quality guy that can come in backfill. And I think that's going to end up being Noteboom again, sadly. I just think Steve will kind of push him out of the rotation. I think Curry was a fantastic left tackle. He'll be fighting against one of our other picks for that left tackle spot. Right tackle Rob Hamenstein has been good, not great, but consistently good. Right guard, I think they're going to keep Bruss there if he can stay healthy. So center and left guard are the two spots we really need quality players at, and I think Steve Avila will fill either or, kind of depending on how the preseason goes. Okay, guys, let's talk about Byron Young, not the Alabama one, the Tennessee one, because this got me whenever they selected him, edge out of Tennessee, because I thought he was already picked, and I forgot there was two. And then when I heard his name again, the other Byron Young, it really took me for a loop. Zach, we got an edge in the first 2-3 picks. I think me and you were hoping they would go edge early. This team desperately needs someone other than Aaron Donald to get pressure, and I think Byron Young is our guy.
For sure. I mean, I've been yelling at the rooftops that the edge was really, I think, where the Rams needed to pick the most, and they got a couple in this draft. So I'm really excited to see what he has to do. I mean, I think everyone was shocked that Will McDonald he went out 15
pick 15, yeah.
I think that was a big shot, because I think everyone thought that he was going to be left around for when the Rams were able to pick at 36, and I think his style fit the bill of what the Rams were looking for. But Byron Young, I mean, just everything that I've kind of been looking at him, I think he's going to fit the scheme perfectly.
Oh yeah, great athletic numbers. Blaine, this guy has such a fantastic story. Can you kind of tell us about that and what makes him a really good prospect to fit in this kind of Rams zone scheme and pass rush that we use with Aaron Donald?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much cooler of a story than, as assistant manager at the Dollar General to playing JUCO and then going JUCO to the University of Tennessee in the SEC. Just a great story, and that's kind of, I think, a good thing. Just, this guy's got a chip on his shoulder. He's not going to take this opportunity for granted. From a prospect wise perspective, he rushes with power. He has decent speed. He has good counter moves. He has a lot of tools in the toolbox, and it's going to be up to the Rams to kind of unlock those and for him to reach his full potential. Because even though he is 25 and maybe doesn't have the ceiling of someone like Will McDonald, who is younger and just seen as this athletic freak, Byron Young is just as athletic, and I think it can come in and maybe make more of an impact right away than a McDonald could have. So yeah, I absolutely loved this pick when it happened. I was ecstatic in the third round. They absolutely needed an edge, and I'm glad they didn't force it at 36 and kind of let the board fall to them. And it worked out when they got a really good player in Young.
Yeah, and he hasn't been playing that long either, only 3 or 4 years. I think he's definitely getting better and better as the years go along. When I was watching his tape, he did remind me of Leonard Floyd, being able to hold, contain, being able to put on moves when he is pass rushing. I think he said he modeled his ghost technique after Von Miller. I mean, it's just really cool details. And fantastic story. I really hope he pans out, and I think the Rams needed him in this rotation because, like you said, Michael Hoyt, that's all we have. And we got a few other younger edge rushers, and I think they're going to sign a bunch of UDFAs and hope one kind of pans out because I think we need three. I would say 3 or 4 really good edge rushers to rotate in and out. And right now we have one. I'm still not sold at Michael Hoyt on the outside linebacker spot, but I thought he had promise in that position.
I say if he drops a couple pounds, I think he gets a little faster.
Yeah.
I think he can do well. So
let's talk about our round 3 pick at pick 89. This is one that I was kind of shocked that he went in the 3rd round. I was expecting him in the 5th round. And that's not to say that it isn't. If the Rams like him at a 3rd round, then pick him at a 3rd round. I think it's stupid not to get your guy when he's in your lap and you think he's a 3rd round talent and you really like him. It's Kobe Turner, D tackle of Wake Forest. Very similar to things we heard about Aaron Donald coming out of draft. He's undersized. Yeah, he's quick. He's good at stopping the run, but he's just not an NFL body. He shouldn't be taken in the first few rounds. Rams grabbed this guy. Blaine, do you think his size is going to be an issue? Or do you think Aaron Donald can kind of mold someone of a similar stature into a really great D tackle for us?
Yeah, I did think this was a little bit of a reach, and I think you hit the nail on the head here, Ashton. All these teams that they have their top 100, top 150, top 175 board, and sorry if you hear my dogs in the background. Every team has these boards, and they're all vastly different. While the Rams might have had a 3rd round grade on Turner, another team might have had that 5th round grade on him. So, especially when you get to day 2, day 3 of the draft, it really is a crapshoot. It's about throwing darts, and you want to get the guy that you're comfortable with. And if that was Turner for the Rams, then I'm okay with it. I do think I'm not necessarily worried about his small sizes and like height and weight. I think his arms are going to be an issue. He does have short arms, so I see it as more of a rotational piece. But yeah, it's. I think he's going to have an uphill climb, but I think just with his get off and his speed, I think he can make that work in his advantage.
Yeah, there's definitely been 2 positions in the last few years the Rams have been excellent at drafting at, and that's always been safety and D-line. And I feel like this is another quality pick. I do think it's a little bit early for where he was going to fall, but if they had intel, and again, guys, we don't work for the team, so we don't know if they knew the Buccaneers were going to pick him at 5, 10 picks. They're like, okay, we have to go ahead and pick him now because he won't be there in the fourth. Zach, per PFFF from Sosa Cremenges, they had him as the third highest PFF grade among D tackles in this class. He was the first in run defense and fifth in pass rush. And to me, that kind of screams Rams. They've been getting a lot of run stopping D tackles to go along Aaron Donald because they don't need that guy to rush the passer. They have Aaron Donald, so they get guys who can really clog up the lanes for running backs. And we've always had a really good run defense up until last year. We're consistently top 5 because of that. Do you think this kind of follows suit? And what do you think of going D tackle at the spot?
Yeah, I mean, definitely what you guys said is spot on. I wasn't really quite expecting him to go so early, but when you look at that, first in run defense, I think you're right. I think that's what they're trying to swallow that up. If you can get the edge and you can pressure them to go in the middle, and then you can swallow them up with either Aaron Donald or whatever his vast amount of supporting cast are. I think he could fit into that supporting cast role. I mean, shoot, Aaron Donald is always double teamed at best, if not triple team. So that just gives other players the opportunity to make the play as well. So definitely think that anybody that you can put it next to Aaron Donald, they're not going to do terrible. I think just having his presence there and his ability to kind of coach them and kind of show them the ropes and how to make the best plays. I mean, this is Aaron Donald we're talking about, best defensive player probably of all time. So I'm not really super concerned that he's not going to do well.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans are underestimating the loss A'Shawn Robinson will end up having an effect on this line, or was going to. He was a really big factor in stopping the run in most games. Now, he didn't pop off the screen. I wouldn't say he was overly great at pass rushing, but he was really good at run protection most games, and keeping and forcing the runner to kind of have to force outside of the lanes they wanted to go. So I definitely like the pick from that point of view. From Jordan Rodriguez, she said he was relentless, bouncy on his feet, great balance, flexible, awesome work ethic, and that he's very much stronger at his weight at 293, and he is called the conductor because he is very musical. So really cool to hear. I think 293 is a great weight if that's a lot of muscle, and I'm happy to hear it is. So I think we will end up moving from one controversial pick. And I thought this one was going to end up being the most controversial of the entire draft. I was like, I don't see how you can get more controversial than picking a guy who some people thought was a 5th rounder, 4th rounder in the 3rd. And they topped that by taking Stetson Bennett from Georgia, QB, at pick 128. Zach, both me and you agreed that we really thought they were going to pick up a QB in this draft. I thought that was kind of really clear. Last year, both of our backups didn't cut it. That team was awful. It's borderline XFL material, that offense was. It was historically bad. And a part of that was our QBs couldn't pass it down the field. And I understand we had a lot of injuries on the O-line and wide receiver core, but the QB play was so subpar that I knew they had to get a backup QB in minimum in the draft. And there's some rumors that they were going to take Hendon Hooker if he kept on falling even more. What do you take of taking Stetson Bennett? I know that's a guy I had mocked. I'm very happy about it. I really thought I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan. I really thought he was underrated, and he's a little bit older, so people are going to hold that against him. what do you think of the two-time national champ? And do you think it's a good move to go out and get a QB in the 4th round when we have so many other needs?
I mean, this was a Matthew Stafford pick, right? Matthew Stafford told Sean McVay, if he's available, pick him. I mean, it's not too much of a coincidence that Matthew Stafford was a Bulldog. The Bulldogs were in SoFi Stadium. These two quarterbacks did meet up. I'm sure there was some dialogue going back and forth. Who knows? That may be far fetched, but there is that coincidence and there is that line to draw if you want to do so. But very interesting pick. Like you said, we kind of thought that they were going to go more 5th round. There were quite a bit of quarterbacks. Well, there's 2 pretty much quarterbacks that got out of the 1st round, and Rams fans were pretty hot after day 1 of the draft, and conspiracy theories flew about
people thought we were gonna take Will Levis if he fell further.
Yeah, there was a lot of that going on.
I don't know if I trust McVay not to, honestly, given the fact that he took Bennett so high. Of course, they're saying Bennett is their highest QB. I don't think he was. But realistically, I think he is very good. Now, to defend them picking Stetson Bennett, Jake Hayner, Blaine, got taken the pick before, and there ended up going 4 QBs between 127 and pick 140. So there was a run on QB. These kind of, you could say, 3rd tier. You had your 1st tier, yeah, like your first 3 QBs that went off the board. Then you had your 2nd tier, the Will Levis type Hendon Hooker, and then this 3rd tier where like kind of fighting for quality backups, so to say, or potential starters, or let's say projects. This 3rd tier, they started going off the board really quickly after Rams made this pick. Do you think that's why they went and picked Bennett? And do you think Bennett is a good pick at all?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. People have been so much happier about this pick had happened in the 6th round or the 5th round or whatnot. But I think that's kind of why trading back in the 3rd round and picking up this 4th round pick was so crucial, because it kind of gave you a luxury pick per se. This wasn't a pick that they were planning on having, and it's kind of they could be a little bit more flexible with it, I think. So taking a quarterback at this spot, I think, made a lot of sense. And if Bennett was their guy, like if McVay feels that Stetson Bennett was the best guy to run his offense, if something happened to Stafford and whatnot, like who are we to say like they're wrong for that decision? But I really do like Stetson Bennett. He's won back-to-back national championships at Georgia. He's a lot more athletic than I think meets the eye. He can get out of the pocket. He can make plays with his legs. He does have a good release. He can hit those short into intermediate throws. I'm not sure I love his deep ball, but that's something that can certainly, I think, be improved on. So yeah, I think he's the perfect backup quarterback option. And for those that are on the tank for Caleb Williams bandwagon, I don't think a move like this doesn't take them out of taking a quarterback next year in the 1st round if they're in a position to do so either.
I mean, ultimately, I think he has the possibility of being a top 15 QB in this league. I really liked him coming out of college, and I'm not one of those people who thought the last Georgia QB should have been drafted. I said he shouldn't have. So I'm not being homerish with saying he is really quality. His deep ball needs to get better. If he's going to be an NFL QB, he's going to have to work on that. But his decision-making is top-notch. There's a reason why Georgia won so many close games. And it's not just because their defense went through some rough patches in the middle of the season. It really was a testament to him grinding out tough and close games. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Blaine, with he's way more athletic than people think. His NFL comp is Russell Wilson, with how athletic he is able to move out. He has a RAS score of 8.2, so his 40-yard dash is pretty good. 8.79, it's not bad. 8.79, not bad for a QB. I mean, the guy got close to winning the Heisman. You can't get much worse, or can't get much better, honestly, in my opinion, in the fourth round. And if they thought he was going to go a little bit earlier, then yeah, get your guy. All right. Nick Hampton, edge from Appalachian State. Uh, Blaine, another edge. Do you think it was right to go edge in this situation? This guy is a little undersized, uh, but very athletic. Do you think? I know they have a type, but do you think it was right to go edge with? You said earlier with wide receivers being so, in my opinion, a need. They passed on a few good wide receivers with this pick to go edge.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to prioritizing their needs, I guess, and I definitely think wide receiver could have been an option here. They waited a very long time to address the cornerback spot. So I think that could have been a potential position to target here as well. But I'm not surprised that they double dipped on edge. Like we said, coming into the draft, Michael Hoyt was the only guy at the edge rusher position coming into the draft. So you got your guy, your number one guy in Byron Young there in the third round. But we really haven't seen a lot from Daniel Hardy. He's an insane athlete, but what can he bring as a pass rusher? Kyer Thomas had a good preseason last year, but what can he kind of bring is more of a full-time role during the regular season? So they don't have the bodies there. So I'm not surprised that they double dipped on edge rusher. Maybe this wasn't the spot to do it. Maybe they should have taken a wide receiver, but I can't fault them for going edge either. And I absolutely love Nick Hampton, so I wasn't complaining about the pick. Really good in space. Really nice athlete, explosive, has a really quick get off. I think he's going to come in and be a really nice rotational piece off the edge.
Mm. Yeah, and he was projected around this pick. So I think for the fact they had a plan to address cornerback, and I think he's our next. Sorry, yeah, 3 picks later they addressed cornerback. I thought this was the spot they were going to address tight end. I was a little surprised that they went at least with Nick Hampton over a tight end, because I just felt like McVay really, really wanted a tight end this draft that he could use as a weapon, and they ended up waiting, and they get Nick Hampton. They definitely need more bodies in that rotation. From the Athletic, they said he's an every down NFL back. He has the physical tools. His best fit is a sub rusher in the mold of Josh Uche from Miami, I believe. Yeah, I think if he's another Uche, I can't complain about that. I feel like we need someone to be able to help set the edge and force runners to go back inside towards Aaron Donald. What's your take on this, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I like we keep saying, I mean, we saw that the defense is probably, again, the most needed position. And really, like you said, setting the edge. And, what we have right now is maybe not ideal. And so just bringing in more people at that spot to see what works and what doesn't, I think is just crucial for this defense where, going into this draft, it was pretty much Aaron Donald and, an Army. So against an Army. So I think it's a good, smart pick to keep this up. Again, should they waited a couple more rounds and, like you said, got a wide receiver, but again, the wide receiver room it does have a lot in it right now. Right now, when you're looking at a wide receiver, you're really looking maybe for your punt returner. That's kind of where you're at probably at this point. So I don't know. I think the edge is a good solid spot to keep building on that defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we have to remind people, though, I think they were going away from purely picking people because of special teams. So I do think when they're drafting a wide receiver, they were wanting someone for depth in that kind of position group. Next pick is Warren McClendon, round 5, pick 176 out of Georgia. I loved this pick. I thought I was a little surprised he didn't go in round 4. I really think he was a fantastic tackle for Georgia. He has some issues a little bit with pass pro whenever Georgia would do long dropbacks. Now it's the NFL. It's going to be a little bit more, let's say, less long dropbacks than you have in college, but you have better pass rushers. So that kind of negates that, in my opinion. But he did struggle with that a little bit. Fantastic run blocker. I actually think it's going to be hard between him and a Curry who starts at left tackle. But I think McClendon could win that job. I think we could have potentially drafted 2 starting linemen in this draft, and we got one in the 5th round, and I think he's going to be a stud. Definitely love this pick here. Zach, do you have any opinions on going tackle here and him as a player?
Yeah, I guess my only surprise is I guess I didn't think that they would go with so many offensive linemen, or maybe so many, going in the 5th round. Because again, I didn't think they had a bad offensive line going in from last season, other than the fact that they were just plagued with
Injury
injuries.
prone. Yeah.
And that's just, I mean, it sucks. I mean, it sucked for them. And I think any team, doesn't matter if you're Patrick Mahomes or, whoever, Aaron Rodgers, if you have a bad offensive line, or you have an offensive line that's changing out every single week, there's not a whole lot you're going to be able to do to keep yourself protected. What about you, Blaine? How do you feel about it?
I actually really like this pick. This was Jake Ellenbogen. This was his guy. He really liked Warren McClendon. Kind of got me onto him kind of late in the draft process. I think you kind of look at the offensive line, and I think they do have a lot of guys that give them a lot of options just because they are so versatile. But I think you kind of look at some of the players in particular, and you look at a guy like Joe Noteboom, and you really don't know what he's going to give you coming off this torn Achilles. That's a pretty significant injury. Obviously, Bobby Evans didn't really work out, so he got cut at the end of last season. So you kind of need, I think, this swing tackle role where a guy can come in and play either on the left side or right side. And McClendon, I think 37 starts at right tackle. So he clear the right tackle spot. Is maybe that heir apparent to Rob Havenstein if he develops well enough. And then if you need somebody coming on the left side, I think he can do that as well. I think his size wise, I think he can slip in at guard. I don't think he has any experience there, but I think if you develop him, I think he can fit in there okay. So I think he's kind of perfect. I think 6th offensive lineman, depending on what they do with Joe Noteboom, and depending on how he does. But at the very least, the thing that killed them last year on the offensive line, and I mean, I guess you can say they didn't have depth, but they also did. It was more like they didn't have depth behind their depth because of how hurt they were. But I think getting McClendon and adding another body in there, I think was a really good move.
Yeah, no chemistry really was killing them, and he got 0 sacks credited to him over 822 pass blocking snaps. Just really impressive. I loved watching him in Georgia. He was really great in the run game, and I think that's someone we really needed because our run blocking was so atrocious last year. I get some of that has to do with zone blocking means you have to have good timing, you have to be in the right spot, and when you're changing the person to your left and right every week, it kind of makes it hard to be on time with that person. So definitely agree with you, Blaine. Round 5, pick 175. Davis Allen. Sean McVay gets his other tight end weapon from Clemson. What's your sneed snack, so to say, Blaine, on Davis Allen or Davis Allen? I don't know how you pronounce that. What's your insight on him?
I was absolutely stoked that they drafted him. This was kind of my mid-round guy at tight end that I was really hoping they would snag. I was hoping maybe Dalton Kincaid or would fall to the 2nd round. He didn't, and I did really like Luke Musgrave, but they went Avila there at the top of the 2nd round. So this is kind of my mid-round guy at tight end for them that I really liked. And the thing that I like about him is that he's 6'6", but for 6'6", the dude can block. Like, you want to run more 12 personnel? Like, this is the guy you get on the field with Higbee to push bodies around. During the Senior Bowl, he's blocking in line, and he seals off Adatomia at Adebawore from Northwestern, the Northwestern guy that everybody was extremely high on as a potential first round pick, and ends up going in the 4th. But he had a really good play there against him, and that impressed me. But he's versatile. He can line up in that H-back spot, line up in line. I do think he needs to develop as a wide receiver a little bit. But I think just size wise, he can line up upright and in the slot and be kind of your big slot there. If he can develop as a wide receiver, I think he can. If he can develop as a receiver, I think he can be a really nice red zone threat. Is a big option for Stafford there in the red zone. But it just as like an immediate impact. We like I said, we talk about McVay, run more 12 personnel, get this run game going. I think Davis Allen is a great step towards that.
Yeah, that's the question that I kind of wanted to ask was, from kind of his, specs that I see here, like I was wondering how he was going to be as a wide receiver. And because I feel like that's something McVay wants to utilize. He wants to utilize a tight end that, yes, can block, but also can catch the ball. And that's probably my only concern I have with this pick is the wide receiver portion of his abilities.
And I think he can develop there nicely. I mean, I think he had he needs to do better in separation. So I think just the stat I'm about to pull, it kind of leads into that, is that he had a 91% contested catch rate percentage. So he's really good in those contested catch scenarios. But I think as he develops as a receiver, as a route runner, something like that number might go down. But he's really good in those 50-50 balls. And if he can develop as a receiver, I think he could be just a really nice tight end 2 option.
Yeah, my entire in-law family are South Carolina Gamecock fans, so they watch Clemson a lot. I got to see this guy a good amount. You nailed them perfectly. Really good in run blocking. Really good when it comes to fitting in a zone type scheme that Clemson runs with Will Shipley, that running back. My problem with him was always his route running wasn't the cleanest, wasn't the best. He struggled to get separation, but he would aid people constantly. So if he can get that route running a little bit up, I definitely see him as a Tyler Higbee style player. Definitely fits that type of mold. Higbee isn't the prettiest pass catcher, but he does get some of those overhead catches. He gets open every so often. So it definitely fits their mold, and it makes sense that they would go after a guy like this later in the draft or mid-round. PFF, I think yards per reception, he was 28th. Overall, PFF has him 8th. Again, I don't think PFF is everything, but it's something. And then you noted the 91% contested catches, which is 5th in the nation, and he had 11 overall. Let's go and talk about a wide receiver, guys. They went ahead and got their wide receiver, round 5, pick 177, and Puka. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that last name. Wide receiver, BYU. A lot of people are comparing him to Golden Tate. Athletically, kind of like the opposite of Tutu Atwell, not a huge burner. Transferred from Washington to BYU. He caught 5 TD passes last year and also rushed for 5 TDs. So I think we could see some jet sweeps with this guy. What's your reaction to that pick, Zach? Them going with a more gadget style wide receiver in the 5th round.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to try to sell this one to me. Yeah, I mean, if he's a gadget player, that's great. But yeah, you guys are gonna have to sell this one to me.
I actually like his route running. I don't know if you have an opinion on it, Blaine. I liked his route running. He got decent separation for not being the fastest guy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just he didn't test well maybe he didn't test well, but I didn't love his times on the shuttle or the 3 cone. Just didn't really show good agility, and usually that speaks to route running. But maybe the Rams have better data, or you just had a bad test day. It happens. it's one thing that did impress me with him is he for being a smaller wide receiver. I think he's only like 5'11", right? Yeah, he is. Oh, I guess he's 6 foot. He does really well in those contested catch situations. He's going to win the 50-50 balls. He does a good job boxing out defensive backs and winning those one-on-one situations, I guess. And so that impresses me with him. But personally, like I probably would have gone with a guy like AT Perry here instead if they kind of wanted that contested catch wide receiver type. I'm interested to see how they use him. Hopefully, McVay has a plan for him. Not ready. I won't rule him out, but not wouldn't have been my top option.
Yeah, I think with how he was playing in college, he could also because I don't think he started as a punt or kick returner, but I could definitely see him as an option with how he was used in jet sweeps and motions and being running out of the backfield basically. I feel like that could potentially translate and maybe that's direction they're going with him added onto the depth chart. Let's talk about my favorite pick of the draft. Round 6, pick 182, Tre'Davious Hodges-Tomlinson. I know Zach is so happy he doesn't have to hear me talk about this guy pre-draft anymore. He can hear me talk about him on the team, and I really can't believe he fell. I thought he was going to be a 3rd or 4th round guy. He fell to the 6th round. A Jim Thorpe Award winner. I think this guy is a steal. Athletically, he doesn't jump off the page, and I get that. But he is so smart, and I think he's definitely someone who can play zone perfectly. He's going to struggle in man, but we're zone defense. So I think that kind of helps him out, and I think he fits in a scheme very well. Zach, what's your reaction to one of my guys coming to the Rams?
Yeah, I mean, not only did it get Ashton's endorsement, but it also got Jalen Ramsey's endorsement. You saw him; he's pushed out a tweet earlier when this happened, just saying how awesome that he thinks he's going to be within this organization, and I think that says something, especially when you were just traded from that organization to then once this guy gets picked, that he's going to Twitter and saying, hey, you're going to do well and you're going to do well within this organization. So I think it tells a lot about this guy, but also how he's going to fit within this organization. And then again, just about the organization as a whole when it comes down to this. So I'm really excited to see what he has to offer.
Yeah, I definitely think we got a starting corner here. I think him and Jacoby Durant are going to be an underrated pairing going into the season next year, Blaine. What do you make of this pick? Do you think it was a good idea going cornerback at this position, especially with how far he was falling? And is this a steal in your opinion?
Yeah, for sure. I think I think this guy and the guy we're going to talk about here in I think 2 picks here. I think either of these guys have the chance to be a steal of the draft. I mean, the Rams had really waited at cornerback, and for them to get a guy like Tomlinson at the spot here in the 6th round, a guy that can be a potential starter, you take that every single day and twice on Sunday. He is a little smaller. The Rams are very small at cornerback outside of Darian Kendrick, really. So and Rochelle is a little taller too. So we'll see, how he develops here. But it'll be a really big year for him. But I think Tomlinson is a guy that can play, gives them an option in the slot. Has the ability to play outside. I don't know if that'll be their top option to play him at, but just a nice physical player there in the slot. Absolute steal. And I'm not complaining about this pick at all.
Yeah, I think they can go for size with UDFAs. They're going to have to find someone to fill that 3rd spot. Maybe it's Kendrick. I really like Kendrick coming out of college. He kind of saw the entire NFL being too fast. And I think he was, I'm hoping that processing speed is going to go slower and slower for him. And hopefully next year, Kendrick can pop off. Like, I think he had the possibility because he was always there in the play in the right spot. He just never was able to make the play, if that makes sense. With Hodges Tomlinson, he was second best for receptions allowed in the NCAA at 34%. I just think this guy was fantastic in coverage, especially zone. He did have trouble covering some of the bigger Georgia wide receivers and tight ends in national championship. So I think that's something we're going to have to take into account if he goes to the slot. Just fantastic pick there. All right, let's go to round 6, pick 189. Ohan Mathis, edge from Nebraska. We're getting in the later 6th round. I wasn't super familiar with Mathis outside of I think I saw a few of his games when he was with TCU. He moved to Nebraska last year. I think he's going to be a guy fighting for a spot in camp, and hopefully one of these guys from camp can pop off, because we really need another pass rusher next to the rest of the guys we have. What do you make of him, Blaine? Do you have any insights on him as a prospect?
I honestly I don't didn't watch this guy a lot at all, really. Did some research on him when the Rams did draft him. Like you said, he came over from TCU, and I think he expected that move from TCU to Nebraska to go a lot better than it did, and I think he only ended up with 2 sacks last year or something like that. But I think when you're talking about guys in the 6th round, this is that guy that you do take a chance on. He has the tools, he has the athletic ability. Like if you can develop him and again reach his full potential, maybe it pays off. And but when you're talking about just throwing darts in the 6th round, you increase your odds of hitting by taking the guy with the athletic tools, and he has those.
Yeah, he's a body, and we need more of those on the defense.
Well, we need them more on the roster. I mean, still, even with all these picks that we got in this, I mean, that we're still, a third of the way from a full roster.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that next week, the undrafted free agents, because I'm sure they're signing like 20 or 30 today. We did get a good kicker, or at least a kicker. I haven't looked into the kicker, but we also drafted a punter. Another, I wouldn't say shot in dark. I like Zach Evans. I didn't know if we were going to go running back at all. It kind of seemed like they were going to go the undrafted free agent route for a little bit. But at pick 215, we go Zach Evans. I saw you tweeting about him a little bit, Blaine. It looked like you were really happy with him. This guy was the 2020 class #1 running back coming out of high school. So he was supposed to be one of the top running backs of this class. It looked like he kind of got off track from that. But what do you make of Zach Evans?
Yeah, I absolutely love this pick. We've seen running backs the last few years. The guys taking late on day 3 pop off, and I think Zach Evans has that potential. I think this is still Cam Akers' job, but behind him, Kyron Williams is coming off of kind of an injury-plagued rookie season, and the Rams really lacked depth at running back. Henderson, as much as I loved him, he was always dealing with stuff. So they really needed reliable bodies, I guess, coming into this year. And I think Zach Evans gives them that. He's a physical back. He's not going to push the pile per se, but try tackling him at speed, and you're not going to have a good time. Yeah. So I think this is the exact type of compliment back that they need to pair with Akers and Kyron Williams.
Yeah, Zach, they definitely need to pour holy water all over that running back room, because it has been cursed since Todd Gurley with injuries, just really, really bad luck. And I think we need some healthy running backs, or I guess we'll be drafting a running back every draft for the rest of history. What do you make of this guy? A really good RAS score from Ole Miss, looks like a home run hitter. His ability to break tackles does kind of concern me because I feel like our run blocking has been a little bit lackluster in the last few seasons. What do you make of this pick?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the 7th round, so I we're you're never really sure what you're going to get with these picks, but again, we need depth in that running back position. So I'm excited to see what he has and what he has to offer.
All right, next pick, punter out of Wingate, Ethan Evans, average of 44.9. He has a long of 79 yards. His hang time, from everything I've read from reports, is really good. Sounds like we got our franchise punter. I mean, I think it's worth a 7th-round pick to get a really good punter. Not a 3rd rounder like San Francisco spent on a kicker. That's ridiculous. But either way, we got our punter, Zach. Happy, not your guy, but a guy.
No, but I mean, when we kind of thought about the specialty players, we thought if anyone they were going to pick in the draft, they were going to go for a punter.
Yeah.
Truly, you need a good punter. You need a good one who has the hang time, so that that your players can get to the ball before the other team gets it. So again, it's one of those things where I think it makes sense, and glad that they stuck with the specialty position that we wanted.
Yeah, I think normally you don't want to use your punter. That's the whole goal, is not having a punter use. I think last year there was one guy who from the Bills didn't get the punt for 2 games straight. That's what we want. But last year a punter could have been really useful, and Riley Dixon just wasn't. He was below average, sadly to say. Blaine, what do you make of this punter? You big punting guy?
Yeah. I love that he's like, well, I think he's like 225 pounds or 234 pounds. Like, that's a big punt. Like, I want to see 4th and 1 and see. Let's see punter power, like just like like get him on a quarterback sneaker or whatnot. On his 4th and shorts. But yeah, I mean, it's just from what I've seen, he does looks like he has just a huge leg, can absolutely bomb it. And it's just as much as it really sucked to see Johnny Hecker leave when he did. I understand not being able to pay him as much as he was probably worth. So it's just the last couple of years, the Rams haven't had that consistency at punter, and hopefully they can get that here with Ethan Evans, and yeah, I just from what I've seen, I'm excited to see what he brings to the table.
Mm-hmm. And our second to last pick, Jason Taylor out of Oklahoma State, or Jason Taylor II out of Oklahoma State. This guy, from all the reports I read, looks like a fantastic athlete. Jordan Poyer even said that he was someone to look out for in this draft. Scouts say he has an issue with missing tackles. That does kind of concern me. But if there's one position, Zach, you always hear me say it every year, that they knock out of the park with drafts, it's safety. I feel like this team, for some reason, Snead just must have been a safety in a past life, because he always gets these quality guys like John Johnson, like these late round picks that always overplay their position. What do you make of Jason Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, all the information that I have for him, I mean, he seems like he will be a solid spot for that hole, especially with Nick Scott and Taylor Rapp both departing. So, it's definitely checks that box of what we need, and something that he could actually bring to the table.
Yeah, he's a semi-finalist for Jim Thorpe Award. He had 99 tackles, 7 deflections, and 6 picks last year. It sounds like we got a really good one, Blaine. What do you make of the super athletic safety, and do you think he's going to follow the route of John Johnson and kind of get put in a starting role, hopefully?
I don't necessarily see him as a day one starter, but where I do see him is I think he has over 500 snaps on special teams. I kind of see him in the mold of sort of like a Nick Scott, kind of on that development route where he starts as this this core special teamer, and then works his way to defense. I think he can play defense, but I think he just immediately he's going to be a core special teamer. I see, Jordan Fuller come back healthy. Russ Yeast, I think I'm really excited to see what he does here in year 2. So they have guys there in place that that I do have confidence in, I think. But I mean, there is an opportunity there if he impresses during camp and in the preseason and whatnot. Like I could absolutely see him taking a starting role on day one. He had I think 13 passes defended last year, 6 interceptions. Like this guy can play. This guy makes plays on the ball, and that's what you love to see in your safeties. So, really liked this pick. I think his impact will come on special teams early, but I think he will develop into a solid starting safety for sure.
Mm-hmm. And part of one of our trades, we got Mr. Irrelevant, Dwayne Johnson, pick 259. Guys, there wasn't really a lot of information on this guy out there. So, in any ways, Mr. Relevant typically is just someone that is on your borderline of like wanting to give them a better contract for them to come to camp. So, Dwayne Johnson, last pick. You guys have any comments on Mr. Relevant?
I will say I believe the Rams met with him at least once, if not twice. So they clearly had their eye on this guy. They liked him. I'm not surprised that they took him late. He's an extremely versatile player. I think he can play really anywhere on the defensive line. He is like Turner early on the draft. He is undersized, but he plays with good explosiveness. But I think the most important thing here is that he is versatile. He can play all over the defensive line. The Rams really do like that. They like to, if you can have a guy that can play multiple spots, you can do some pretty creative things defensively. So he brings that, and I see him as maybe developing into a rotational piece. But like I said, they met with him multiple times, so they clearly saw something and they like him.
Zach, you got any takes on?
If we can get a maybe second year in a row, Mr. Irrelevant, doing something successful, I'll take it. So maybe we'll start a streak going.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, that was the 2023 draft.
Yeah.
What are you guys' final thoughts?
Overall, I really, I think we were hitting a cold streak of drafts, and this team really so desperately needed quality depth. And I honestly think we got 4 or 5 starters in this draft. I think we got some good rotational pieces. But I am stoked about getting Hodges Tomlinson where we got. I think he'll end up being a starter this year. I'm happy about Stetson Bennett. I feel like he's underrated and going to be a really good backup. And Byron Young and Steve Avila, they're day one starters. I think both of those guys will be in the defense and offense. And yeah, I hope the rest of the guys really do pan out. And I think Snead had a smart draft this year, and we needed it. What about you, Blaine?
Yeah, no, I was really happy with it. At 36, you really needed a high impact day one starter, and I think you get that in Steve Avila. But Byron Young gives you he gives you a solid option on the edge. He's someone that they can develop this year, and then if they want to spend big with their $75 million in cap space next year on what is set to be a pretty good free agent edge class, they absolutely can, and you compare Young with that guy, and then. Yeah, they got some quality depth and guys like Nick Hampton and Tomlinson and I Snead needed to be smart about this draft. No, don't get cute, and I think he stuck to the plan. And we'll see how these guys develop, obviously. But coming on here immediately after the draft, I have pretty high hopes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, they hit a lot of the positions that I really wanted them to fill, that I thought was the biggest need. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all plays out in the upcoming season. But I think we're going to wrap this up. We're getting over to an hour, and we hit all the picks. So that's going to wrap it up for this week's episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. You can always send your questions into us and your feedback at eastcoastrams.com, or you can hit up us on Twitter. Our official East Coast Rams Twitter account is at East Coast Rams. Big shout out to our guest, Blaine. Blaine, thank you so much for coming and joining us on this podcast. Where can people keep up with your work?
Hey, yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on. Really enjoy this. Had a great time. You can find me on all my work on turfshowtimes.com. We'll have a lot of stuff coming here post draft, and then on Twitter at Grisak TST.
Yeah, guys, definitely hit his Sneed Snacks up every draft year. He always has been hitting a few, and he's kind of in the mind of Sneed a little bit, which is a crazy, scary place, I imagine. Mad scientist, but gotta love him. Brought us a Super Bowl, and thank you, Blaine. You've been fantastic. Enjoyed this really good conversation about this good draft class.
Definitely. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You can find Ashton at RamsFanAshton1, and you can find me at Zach Mayer. If you're listening to this on the audio version, you can also find us on the video version over at YouTube, youtube.com/@EastCoastRams. Even if you subscribe to one method, please subscribe to another method. That just helps us get our rankings up and keep this podcast going, growing. So please do that. Ashton, I was going to call you Rams fan Ashton. Ashton, any final words before we sign off?
Nah, man, this is a lot of fun. I hope people keep it civil on Twitter about the draft. I feel like people get personal or like get very upset when their person is not taken or is taken and people don't like it. Let's just all be cool and have a civil conversation. But I'm looking forward to talking more about this draft class over the coming weeks.
This has been such a fun 3 days, and we still have more content to come with the unsigned free agents or undrafted free agents. So be on the lookout for that in the coming days, maybe in a week. We'll see how things go. But always keep up with us on Twitter at eastcoastrams.com, and we'll see you guys next time, Ramley.